Yes. As of now, everything we say is being recorded. So keep that keep that in mind. I hope you have approval. So Chip, you're behind you. Your figurine there. I'm sorry. Which part of mass media does that one come from?
Well, that's actually a background photograph.
Right.
So that was me dressed up in my alter ego plague doctor, um, back when this thing started, and I've had some fun with it. And we're not really sure what our weather's going to be Tuesday. Normally, if we had a nice, warm, sunny Mardi Gras, we would get out in costume and wander around and see our friends. We've got a blasted ice storm forecast.
Really?
Yeah. So, in addition to COVID, Mardi Gras might have been canceled just due to the weather. So very,
Funny how that works out. Mike, are you getting the similar weather reports for Tuesday, Wednesday in North Florida? Have you heard?
I hadn't heard about ice. That would be cool.
Uh,
yeah, it's down. It's down. The forecast is down below Baton Rouge already.
so it happens to us occasionally. I see we have Jerry on here. So, Mike, we were teasing last time because we actually had two Toms and two Jerrys, and it was pretty much a Tom and Jerry show. So we're halfway there to last week. Good morning, Jerry. You're looking good there.
Thank you.
Glad you
I
got
had
everything.
my COVID, and I had yesterday. I was really feeling weak and wiped out, and it was between day 4 and day 5, and I'm just wondering whether it was the COVID or just um, random event. But we'll see how we feel today.
Second or first?
First,
Oh,
it was the Pfizer, uh, and it was a real saga trying to get it. Um, we had it scheduled at one of the local hospitals where I'd been on staff. And at the last minute, they sent the thing saying, no, you can't go there. You have to go to Mid-Miami Stadium. Went down there. The line was a mile and a half long. And they couldn't make the time. When I finally got up to the front of the line, they said, you're not on the schedule. And I said, they changed the venue. They said, sorry, we don't have any record of it. Anyway, we managed to get a copy of the email that was sent from the hospital to the new venue, and they said, all right. It took about a half hour, and they finally got me registered and got me through. So it was a real saga. It took about 4 hours or something like that to get everything straightened out. This is a totally dysfunctional state. Absolutely, totally dysfunctional. You can't get things scheduled. When you finally get them scheduled, get things wiped out. Hopefully, we'll get things smoothed out in the next month or two.
I was there also at the football stadium with my father-in-law, and I actually had VIP access. And I got to the gate. I was told to wave off the officer and come in. They wouldn't let me come in, and I went through the line and spent the 3.5 hours with him, even though I was coming in through the Broward County Sheriff's Public Officers Division as a
Yeah, there's
VIP.
nobody who has oversight and has control. And we tried to give feedback to the people that said that they would know, so the people going in the future could get things straightened out. I think when they had it set up at the hospital, it was really a piece of cake. And in fact, my wife had a schedule down at the Broward General, and that was really smooth. Uh, they scheduled her for 10 of 8 in the morning. She got there at 10 of 8, and by 8:05 she was done. She only had to wait about 15 minutes to check her out, and then she was gone. I mean, it was really well run.
Let me let you just remind Jerry, I don't know if it's a problem, but this is being recorded. So if you want me to stop it and then restart it as we talk about other subjects, that's be fine. If you don't
Okay.
want, you
Yeah.
want me to stop the recording and restart it with a new?
No, that's all right. You can.
Okay. So those of you that are going to be watching recordings of the net, I mean, obviously, of the Zoom session, we talk a lot about DV, but there are other issues that we talk about, and in the future, we just use we use Zoom to augment our existing modes of communication on many subjects. And here we're talking obviously about the COVID vaccine, but it could be anything in Marco. And we're trying to set up, and Hilton hasn't come on yet, PY2BBQ, but we're trying to set up where we can even take the video live from the sessions that we're doing on the DVNet and run them as a YouTube live stream, where we'll actually be able to have question and answer sessions from members and other hams who are not member or are not logged into the DVNet. So we're trying to use every mode of communication to the advantage of the organization. But it's taking a while to get this established, as one can see by 4 check-ins. I know Chip mentioned that it's early, and it is. It's early on the West Coast, and even in the mountain area. And maybe we'll see some more check-in, but the net, interesting enough, is only an hour afterwards, so it's still early for California at 7 in the morning. We talked about having additional nets, but the challenge is having additional interest participation in net controls. How do you guys feel about the time? Do you think that if we had a second net later in the day, is there ever a time that's better than another? What do you think, Chip?
I think, anytime you choose, it's going to be convenient for some, inconvenient for others. I don't personally have a problem with this time. But I could imagine anyone in Mountain Time or West Coast would probably balk at getting up that early on a weekend.
Now, you've lived in Texas before here, Mike. What do you think? You think there's times that are better than others? Or is it just a lack of interest?
It's always hard to find a time that's going to be good for all time zones. So, but I agree that for the more Western time zones on a weekend, this is probably on the early side.
So one thought, Jerry, before I turn it over to you for comment, we're about to send out an email blast for a Zoom meeting to talk about the DXpedition, and we chose to do it on a Thursday, 8:30 Eastern time, 5:30 Western time. In terms
AM or PM?
PM. So in the past, I know Chip and I were involved in an Echolink net we tried for a while, and we had some logins. It was in an evening. I don't know, it was 9 o'clock at night to make it better for the West Coast. And we never really got past maybe 5 or 6 participants. But Jerry, just out of curiosity, because if we did a second net, my thought is maybe we should do it in Echolink. So not only do we give a different time, but we give a mode that individuals can use their smartphones for. What do you think, Jerry?
I think any kind of modality that you use that gives us good communication will help. We had a problem, for example, last couple of weeks, we had a problem with the 40-meter Marco COVID net. Last Wednesday, the propagation was just terrible. I could not hear Harry directly, and I could barely get him out of one of the stations in Utah, and couldn't hear him at all out of the east coast of Pennsylvania. And so that one didn't work well. And the previous week, I had to take a trip up to Orlando, and I didn't have any access to 40 meters, so I don't know what happened on that net. But I had suggested to him that perhaps we could use some of the digital methods of using backup, and that would make everything available. Harry keeps talking about how he gets emails from people abroad and gets questions. I have no access to that, but I did think that, if we could get something that is reliable and could pull everything together, that might be helpful.
Yeah, it's nice that he runs that. We kind of loosely associate that with Marco. We call that a informational net that's run by Marco members, because we don't really have control. Excuse me, got a landline. Okay. I'll be back in just a second. Let you guys talk.
I saw something that was advertised on QST called the RF Finder. It's the first time I'd seen anything about it. Do you guys know anything about the so-called RF Finder and how it works? One of it, the come on was that you don't need a code plug anymore.
Yeah, I think anytime you try to skirt around that ambi chip, you're probably in patent violation territory.
So I'm back. On the Echolink side, it technologically it works well. We didn't really have any issue that we have 2 members One has his own conference server in the Washington DC area and is very willing to give us time on it. No problem at all. No issue. The other member has his own conference server, but he has his own thing going on, like an international association of physicians. And he says quite a few members in India. They're not Marco members, so we're not sort of coupling that. That's his own thing. And I've asked him if he'd like us to have a Marco net or allow us on his conference server, but he hasn't responded. I mean, I think it would be best to connect the two, even if it meant using his conference server and it wasn't a Marco conference server, but at least you'd have a tradition of physicians of all types internationally checking in on a net. And it is Echolink. So I don't know if he has to be present. In an ideal world, I wish he would take ownership and be net control for that, because I don't want to be net control another evening here, unless somebody wants to step forward and do that. Well, we can ask. Well, let's see how the Thursday night time is received on Zoom, and we take it from there. So, any technical questions, Mike? I'm coming to town, I think a week from Monday. I'll be there for a week. You want to get a DV stick, or do you have anything that's DV radio equipment now?
I don't currently, so I think this is going to be, for someone who's antenna challenged, I think this is a great solution.
This is the stick that I have right here. So I'm just running it off of the laptop. I believe they do have software for Mac if you didn't want to get a new PC too. I believe I sent that. I know you've been busy this last week, but if you want to check out the Blue DV site and look at their Mac software, you can probably get that chip within a week. They charge a little bit more ordering it through, I think you can get it at, well, I ordered it off Amazon. I think I sent you the link. It's like $20 more on Amazon. That includes the shipping, and usually get it in a week's time. And maybe by the time I'm here, if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm using a mic and headset here, but really you don't even need that on the laptop. And if you already got the webcam for Zoom sessions, at least you probably, you've got a built-in mic for talking.
Right.
You don't need the video for it. If that's something you're interested in, just let me know. Pop me an email. I'll be more than happy
Absolutely.
to come by while I'm in town.
I love that. Do we know if anyone in Marco's had experience doing it off a Mac?
I don't know. You can pop that question on the. Well, I tell you what. Why don't we just ask that on the session, on the actual array, people that are using DV sticks with Mac operating systems. It doesn't necessarily have to be during our net. We can just ask any of the technical people from the array. There's a number of volunteers that make it happen. So I heard you guys talking about the chip that's in these hotspots, and the one that's in the stick that basically allows you access to the different modes. But the QuadNet array does it on the other end. So what they do is they take, no matter how someone gets to their system through reflectors or talk groups, however, D-Star, DMR, they translate it all on the other side. So they merge it all together and send it back down. So they're an intermediary that allows us to communicate to each other no matter what type of radio hotspot, however we access the QuadNet array. So
it's impressive the way they set it up. Do they only have one channel?
They only have the capability of processing one at a time, one translation at a time. I mean, they have different ways of getting to them. So in DMR, it's a talk group, but it'd be a reflector on D-Star. Today, I'm going to be coming in through the D-Star site. But when I talked to you the other day, I came in on the DMR site using my HD and a hotspot. So there's different ways to reach it. But the point is, yes, however you reach it, when it gets to their end, they can only process that one at a time. They only have one system. And they have open time. I mean, I get on their system frequently. There's no nets there. But, the other night when you and I spoke from the ball, when I was at the ball field, one of the guys, I don't remember what state he was in, I think Ohio, and he said that they were having a net in about an hour from now on the constellations. It's a star an astronomy net that was going to be talking about constellations that night. But often you'll be on there and you can actually talk to the administrators, Mike. That's why I can ask the question. They're monitoring quite often. So if you come out with a general question, they may hear it and answer it. And there's a few I know by call sign. One's in Huntsville, Alabama, and sometimes he checks in to hear. And there's another one that's up in Columbia, South Carolina. So there's two of them, at least in the South, that I know that help and contribute. It's not one person, it's a group of people.
Mhm. Do you have a feel for how the majority of our members are accessing the net? Are most of them DMR or most D-Star, or has anybody come in on Yesu Fusion?
I'm not sure. I've heard it discussed. It may have been by one. I've spoken to one person on the system that was using Etsu Fusion. Whether or not he was coming in during our particular net, it was just talking in general on that channel. I know we have members in our group that come in through D-Star. Some of them use the new little ICOM 705. Some of them using ICOM handhelds. So both seem to be working. I'm using an inexpensive, I think they're $95, a TYT MD 380. And I'd gotten this and we had gotten one at the university because we do have a DMR repeater on top of the hospital. It doesn't have great range. I think Mike could probably hit it from his house with a little radio, but I can't. Hawthorne, even with an antenna on my tower, I can't hit it. I don't have a 70 centimeter antenna on my tower though.
Yeah, well, I think the QuadNet is a wonderful idea to feel people out and see what they want to use. But if it turns out that 97% of our check-ins are all on D-Star, we might be better off just getting our own D-Star channel.
I don't know how it works with D-Star. In DMR, you get a talk group.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it works on D-Star. I'm really not versed at that level. I've been counting on. Jack will come on, KD4IZ. He can answer some of those questions. But he had said that they're very leery to give out a talk group on DMR unless the group is going to have a lot of activity. And he didn't feel that ours would substantiate it. However, Hilton in Brazil, PY2 BBQ, did tell me he was going to pursue it. I haven't checked with him. They have a group of Brazilian hams that have their own talk group, and they'll get 100 people at a time talking about COVID. So we're kind of getting a blasé response compared to the long tradition of the HF net, and it's a wonderful net. The HF net. This isn't meant to compete with it.
I don't ever want to give that up.
Yeah.
Bruce has asked me to sort of look over all of the nets and sort of start some planning for the future. But I think the HF net is our anchor, and I think it should always remain no matter what else we do.
So that's interesting. And Mike, you may come into the play on this. So our net control is in Clearwater. He's in Clearwater out of planning. The original net was run in the South and Chips area. And then Warren, who's 96 years old now, started to take over his net control and's been doing it for years, probably 20 years or more. He does it every Sunday morning, prepares the CE. He may have guest lectures. He doesn't always do the topic himself, but he issues the CME2 credits every year. It's about this time of the year. He tracks it, logs everybody in. He doesn't use any logging software. He just does everything manually, and he's wonderful and dedicated and brilliant and likable. And I mean, every attribute in someone that you would want to get on the net to talk to, because it's an enjoyable experience, with the exception of propagation. And obviously you can't have a roundtable. But the question or the issue where I think you might be able to come involved in the future, Mike, depending upon how you and I, if we can get some other volunteers in the area, if we can get the Flex 6600 working, where the Flex 6600 can be come in through your computer at home and everything be automated, we could actually have guest lectures. And when I say you and I being involved and other people engaged, it wouldn't necessarily to run the nets, it would just be to make sure the technology is working.
Right.
So we bought a remote antenna switch, Jerry. We have an IP-enabled antenna switch, but being the hospital network, in COVID, I just haven't approached the staff here. They've got to go ahead and set it up to do the IP pass-throughs through their firewall. So right now, I don't really have a way of installing the hardware, and it just hasn't been a priority. I had my first guest at the station last week, a physician from Ocala who had just made a $500 donation to Medishare. So I invited him to come up and spend a little time with me. I hadn't been in the station in like 9 months. No one had been in there since November. I spent 6 hours updating Windows on all the computers and still ran out of time. I think I got out of there at like 1:30 in the morning. So, I mean, there's a certain amount of maintenance that needs to be done to keep things up. But really, there shouldn't be an issue with the Flex. The other issue,
The next time we have a Zoom meeting, why don't you do it from the station and give us a tour?
okay, that's a good idea. If they'll let the Zoom operate out of the health center, I'll have to bring a webcam there and try it out. They may block the pass-throughs on it. We'll give it a try. Thank you.
The health center is now doing like everything through Zoom, from meetings to grand rounds to didactics. So it's pretty popular. And
Do you have to let IT know that you're going to do it, or is it just automatic that it passes through?
University of Florida has their own Zoom, so it's there's a way to log in, and you can actually use the UF Zoom network.
Okay, I'll ask some of the IT people there to pass along that information to me. Again, that is the issue, Chip, is everything's got to kind of go through their firewall. And then Shan's in the past had a separate firewall. I think they may be unifying it campus wide. So what you did up on the hill wasn't necessarily down on the hill, where the health center was and where the main campus, even though they're close proximity. The IT was segmented for, I guess, security reasons. But
They were
There must be an easy way to access all of it. We had a family Zoom meeting with members of the family in California and in Central Florida and in France. And that was all run through my daughter's access to the UC Berkeley Zoom system. The only difference was it was harder for me to figure out how to check into the thing. Once I got checked into it, it worked out very nicely.
We just lost Chip here for a minute. Hopefully he'll be back. But we certainly can follow up on that. But Mike, if we could get all the technology working, because Warren is 96 years old after all. I mean, I like to think he's going to go on forever. He's sharp, even having survived about with COVID. He's sharp, wonderful person. And it's eventually he's going to need some help. It would be nice to. He's also already wishing that he would get a second person to come in and help and take control of this. But I think the point with the Flex is we wouldn't have to be present at the station. We could actually rotate the net control to different people and give them access to the Flex software through using W4DFU. And if we get a linear, the actual operation will be very similar in propagation to Warren's because he's only 100 miles away, 120 miles away, pointing the antenna in the same direction. So it won't change from a participant's point of view. If anything, it will be better with us having that Yagi on a 200-foot building and having he only uses about 300 or 400 watts. We would actually get a legal limit amplifier, and we would be able to do all that remotely. And we just have to fundraise probably $10,000 to $15,000 to get the equipment that we would need to do that. The linears are probably about $9,000. The other stuff's not that expensive. I already have the antenna switch, but we'd need a rotor that would be oh, look, we're having Etsu check in from Japan. Etsu, I don't see your video connecting to audio now. Good evening, Etsu. I guess here it's getting close to the midnight hour for you. Must be 10 or 11 at night. Glad that you checked in. Welcome.
Thank you. good morning and good evening. We have just the big earthquake, so I just say hello to all of you, and I'll be sign off soon. Just I'd like to say hello to you.
Thank you, Etsu. When was the earthquake? How many minutes ago?
It was very big earthquake. We had a very big earthquake in the northern part of mainland of Japan.
Was it in the last hour? Was
No,
it
just after 11 p.m. So maybe 20 minutes before.
Do you know any of the details of the earthquake? How big was the earthquake?
The origin of the earthquake was just the east of Tohoku district of Japan, the northern part of mainland of Japan. We divided into 7 degrees of earthquake. It was 5 plus, 5 plus. It was very big earthquake, and we have the electricity was stopped, but it is just a moment. So just now we are all okay, but I'll be um, signing off just after saying hello to you, and I'm okay. We are just okay, and we don't have any big damages. Might be in maybe all part of Japan.
Well, thank you for checking in at this very difficult time. I hope there's not going to be tsunamis. Do you know if there's tsunami warnings following this one since it was east of the island?
Thank you, and I'll be able to join them such as Zoom meeting and digital network as often as possible.
Okay, well, if you get a chance to check into the net to just to for a minute or two to tell everybody what you're going through and give us a report from a Japanese perspective of what's happening in the country, what type of mass media you're getting television coverage locally. And even though your area may not be the mostly affected, we wish you and your fellow countrymen and women all the success and that this not be a serious inhibition to society. Thank you for coming in and telling us, Etsu.
Thank you very much, and bye to all of you, and we'll be able to talk to you soon, very soon in the future. Thank you, and bye.
Bye bye, Etsu. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, that's sad to hear. And it was nice of Etsu to come on and explain because he knew we had the net coming up in a half an hour. So he's probably having to get off. He's not that far north, so he wouldn't be in the center of the damage, but kind of disconnected from paying attention to what's happening right now. There must be coverage, although here in the United States, there's probably going to be difficult to find coverage for that event today since there's so much going on. It's probably going to take priority. Welcome back, Chip. So Etsu checked in while you were there.
I lost internet for some reason.
It couldn't have been the earthquake in Japan. That's not
Yeah.
the fault.
No, it's Cox Cable. If we get 2 drops of rain, the internet goes out. It's pitiful.
So is it true that Cox Cable got its start in New Orleans?
Our previous mayor, who is now in jail, was the president of Cox Cable New Orleans before he was elected mayor. Subsequently, Cox Cable got a sweetheart deal, lifetime monopoly on all cable services in New Orleans, and they promptly sat down on their rears and haven't done a thing since then. As you might expect, they don't have to do anything, so it's really bad.
Mm. I'm not sure if the Cox radio network is related to the same parent company, but Jamie Dupree was on one of those conservative talk shows. He was the right hand man for the person. He's a ham, Jamie. He was one of our hams from UF.
Yeah, he
No,
used to come on Neil Bortz's radio show.
right. Yeah, well, he was one of ours. He was one of the students I had in my novice class back when he was a student. Nice guy, nice young man.
Yeah.
He had a medical condition that affected his voice, and he's speaking again, but I think with electronic aid. But just top-notch person, very considerate. And he wasn't able to accept honorariums when he was speaking through Cox, but he was able to gift them, and he gifted a significant honorarium to the Gator Image Radio Club. He would choose as he rotated through different charities to gift to. Again, very thoughtful and considerate person. He was nice then, and he's just as nice now. So we're going to get ready for the net here. Are there any technical questions? I know we're going to work with Mike to get him on. So Mike, you and I can correspond directly back and forth.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and I'm coming in, I believe, a week from this Monday, and I'll be in for a week to 7 or 8 days, and I will be available. I'm going to be at the station some that following weekend, the last weekend in March. I mean in February. But I'm yours. Just let me know. I can come by your house. Whatever you'd like. If you needed any help, or we'll just talk it through by Zoom, private session of Zoom, whatever, I'm here for you. Just let me know.
That'd be great.
Jerry, what about you from a technical standpoint? Are you covered now? You got everything all worked out?
The only thing that I've got covered is I've got my 2-meter access returned. Hopefully it'll stand up. I got my 706 back. The people that did the work on it said, the problem with the radio is that I live in Florida. I said, would you please explain that? I said, he said, you've got an issue where you've got condensation that develops because of the connection to the power supply, and it heats up even if the radio is not on. And then there's these micro connections that are getting corroded, and that caused a problem. I said, so what did you do? He said, I don't remember. He said, I just took everything apart, cleaned up all the boards, put it back together again. And he said, I'm glad that it's working, but he said, that's what your issue is. Now, I don't know whether that's valid or not, but that's the information that I have. Anyway, I don't know what advantage he has. He lives in Georgia, so, you know.
Is the radio inside the house or in the car?
No, it was always in the house. Always, and there's always 50% humidity in the house. And I said, that doesn't explain why that has an issue. And that's the explanation he gave. I don't know whether it's just something he invented or whether it's fact. But anyway, over the last 6 months, it's been back and forth 3 times, and it's finally working for the moment. The issue that I had was every time I turn it on, it would shut off. And I said, is there a fan motor in there that's causing a problem? He said, no. He said, that's not the issue. The fan is a two-speed connection, and it runs at slow speed at the beginning when it first starts to heat up, and then if it needs it, it runs at high speed. But who knows? You know, these are things that might be just intentions of people just to blow you off. But I never got a satisfactory explanation. As far as the connecting to the digital network, I've got the analog telephone right now, and I'm going to try to access it that way. And ultimately, when we can get some connections to the people in the local amateur radio net, I'll try to get somebody there that's knowledgeable and try to get him to help me fix up the ND380 and the code plug and get that squared away. And then maybe I'll be able to access that way. But at the moment, I just don't know enough about the details. I'm sort of an operator rather than understanding all the dynamics of what happens. But ultimately, hopefully, we'll get everything squared away.
If you send me a list of all the stations you want in Boca area, South Florida, for your code plug, I'll modify my code plug, make sure mine's working, and then send it to you if you'd like.
Well, it's a matter of getting it installed and getting it operating properly. The problem that I have is it's not just the code blood for the ND380, it's the 5-star connection, getting that to work as well. So I've got to get that sorted away.
Well, I can help you with that. I mean, you want me to come by sometime? I'm around quite a bit. Busy right now, but the next couple of weeks when I get back in the first week of March, I should have a few minutes. Just let me
Okay.
know if you'd like some help. I can swing by on both counts. I see Jack's here. Of course, he can help you remotely too. He's much more versed than I am. Jack, we had an interesting happening here in the Zoom session before you logged in. We had Etsu in Japan come in to tell us they just had a major earthquake 20 minutes before in northern Japan.
Oh, wow.
So he had lost electricity. Then when he got it back, he came in, he got off. I don't know if he'll be on the quad net array. Of course, it was after 11 o'clock at night at the time. So we checked in around 11:30 p.m. and said it had been about a half an hour since just after 11 local time p.m. when
Is
they had.
Etsu on the main island, or is he on?
No, he's not. I'm trying to remember which one he's on. He's not where Tokyo is.
He's up north, or?
He's not the furthest North Island, but I don't remember exactly where Etsu is. Yeah. You can look him up on QRZ. It's JA0BXP, I believe. Oh. Maybe I'm conflating that with, yeah, I think it's BXP. Chip, does that sound familiar? JA0BXP?
I think that is. We can look it up.
Yeah, his name is Etsu.
Yeah. So anyway, this thing was offshore. Looks to be 100 miles or more off northeast of Tokyo. Offshore probably by 50 miles.
And he says stay out deep or tsunami warnings or.
Let's see.
And he gave us a Japanese scale. He didn't give us a Richter scale, but it sounded like it was a significant event. He said 5 out of 7.
Yeah, let me go to the USGS and see what they have to say.
5 plus out of 7. And I don't think it's going to get a lot of coverage here in the United States unless it's extremely major today in the mass media. Too much stuff going on. 10 o'clock this morning. Interesting, that he was able to get his electricity back and check in to tell us that, sort of explaining why he may not be on the quad net array. So,
okay, depth was 54 kilometers, and it looks like there was a tsunami warning.
It looks moderately large. Magnitude was 6.3 on the Richter scale.
Yeah, that's significant.
They got 7.1 here. Okay, no tsunami warning advisory, watch your threat. So that
must have been deep enough and not a big shift.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. But it could be worse, since that would probably do more damage that far off than the shaking itself. They're used to shaking.
We should just sell Hawaii to the Japanese if they still want it, and pay off our national debt.
But we have to have 50 stars, which means Puerto Rico would replace it. That would eat up the national debt.
Well, if Texas secedes, then we add Puerto Rico. We don't have to change the flag.
Well, we'll see how Ted Cruz does after today.
Well, it's not.
maybe they'll make him secede.
It's not so. Hopefully, it's not so much Ted Cruz. It's more Gilmert.
We live in an interesting world anyway. I'm glad Marco's pretty free of politics. So
Yeah.
we have a lot of members all across the spectrum, and so far it hasn't been a problem. Yeah. I guess we're all used to that as doctors. I mean, they bait us all the time, the patients, to have these discussions.
Exactly.
We know better than that.
I had 2 patients in a row come into my office, both just horribly upset about the politics, and both in totally opposite directions. And I have to maintain neutrality and empathy, and it's like, well,
Think how much a slower psychiatrist would be if it wasn't for politics.
Yeah.
listen, I tell you, COVID and politics and all that's practicing psychiatry now is like shooting fish in a barrel. I booked that 3 months in advance.
Wow. It's about to get busier, I'm afraid.
Hey, Tom, how about giving us a talk on schizophrenia?
I can, this is one of the issues about the nets. I am using a in-fed wire from a condo in the French Quarter in New Orleans. I cannot put up a big antenna, and there's only a handful of people who can actually hear me. So even though I've given grand rounds in the past, I had a much better antenna when I was doing it.
That was at the house before, right?
Yeah, well, originally, years ago, I lived out at the state hospital in Mississippi. We had 200 acres, and they had a bucket truck, and they would help me put up, some massive loops and things like that. And I would take over for Bob. I actually had a better antenna than he did at that time, but not anymore. My antenna, you could hold it in the palm. You can fold it up and hold it in the palm of your hand.
So your
I have
resident go ahead, Jerry.
An interim suggestion is that you can take your voice memo on your iPhone, record a 45-minute session, and send it over to our net control Warren, and have him play it, and then use that as a takeoff for a discussion. Because I think it might be helpful if we understood really what's going on. Maybe it gives us a more formal understanding of what's happening these days.
Jerry, he could also do it over Zoom to Warren.
Sure.
Just live, broadcast the whole thing live.
Yeah.
That way he's got real time.
I've thought about those kind of things. It's going to be very difficult for somebody to serve as net control, check in everybody, maintain the traffic, and then also have a secondary feed that they're trying to negotiate at the same time. It can be done, but it's equivalent to one of those single operator 2 radio contests. People practice for years to be able to do that, and I would hate to force that on Warren. So if this, and of course recording in advance, there's no way to answer questions. So again, I'm open to anything, but there are some natural barriers that you just bump up against with some possible options.
I think with time, all good things will occur. We'll just continue to move forward on technology. We're starting to merge the Zoom sessions and the DV sessions to be able to live stream them. So that would be, good. Even if Warren couldn't do it, we might be able to, one of us to
I think
live stream it.
I think the actual key to solving the problem is if you think big enough, the radios, not only the radios, but the receivers and the transmitter, the net operator, and the presenter can all be in different places. That's possible now, and we could set up something like that. But I do think the Florida location is ideal for HF for getting reaching the entire rest of the country. I hope that we can always have a Florida station willing to at least serve as a parent.
Yeah, we certainly can work towards that with W4DFU, since that's something going to be remote access from anywhere. Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to say goodbye here. Or I can stay signed on if you'd like to run it, Jack. I have split screen sharing here, so you should be able to.
And unless I had a board of directors meeting with eCars this morning, which is why I was late. If anybody has a question to throw at me, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to shift over to the radio and meet you there. Jay, I do have a question for you to think about, something we ought to talk about on the phone. That is, we may have the opportunity for some donors to give some money to MedShare. And I'd like to know a little bit more about MediShare than what's on the net or what's on the internet. Okay.
Yeah, we certainly, let's talk about it. Sure.
Yeah, because I know when this comes up in discussion next meeting, these folks are going to want to have a lot of questions answered, and it kind of took me by surprise this morning, but there's an opportunity, and if I can direct a chunk of that opportunity towards MediShare, that'd be a good thing, I guess.
You have great timing because I've been talking about this with a ham. You have great timing because I've been talking about this with a ham in Ocala that just donated $500. Since he was only 45 minutes from me, I had him come over to the UF station. He grew up in South Africa. So we're actually going to be discussing with him and with his network of connections, looking for projects to do in Africa. So it's actually perfect timing as we evolve. We have, a designated fund now that's growing already. So we can get a gauge for what we can get involved with. But let's talk about it on the phone. And unless there's a technical question, let's call this session to an end and move on over to the QuadNet array. And Mike, you and I will get together in the next couple of weeks. And Jerry can talk
about MediShare. We do have printed brochures. Okay.
Thank you. And we'll, if we have those brochures, Chip, I'll have to look for them and maybe we should put it on the website.
All right.
We'll get everything updated. Jack, we'll talk. Chip, of course, we'll see on the net. We can continue the discussion. Okay. It doesn't all have to be COVID discussion on the net. So if you guys want to talk about MediShare and just say there's opportunities, we'd like everybody to think about it. Who else has the ability to fundraise? Yep. That would be exceptional. Thanks, guys. Well, unless there's technical questions for Jack, any? Well, thanks for joining us today. Of course, the session's been recorded, so we're going to make the recording available on the website, and appreciate everybody participating. Again, it's just one of our many ongoing venues for members to have questions answered, and I wouldn't say necessarily a perk of membership, but a goal of our membership is to be good communicators, and this is part of that overall effort. Thanks again, everybody. Next Zoom session will probably be a week from Thursday night. We'll be sending out a blast email, and it will be focusing on, it might actually be next Thursday night. Look for the email. It will be focusing on the upcoming trips to the Caribbean, and it will also talk about possible potential future trips, because in harmony with the idea about Africa, we're thinking that the next DXpedition might be able to be in Africa for 2 years from now. And we also have a lead on joining the Brazilian army when COVID is safe, of going into the Amazon as another DXpedition. So we're not going to just rest on the Caribbean. Again, broadening our appeal to our members.
Are you going to make sure that everyone has shots against yellow fever and everything else that they need if you're going into the Amazon?
No, we'll deal with all that when the time comes, because we're talking 2024 and beyond here for those plans. But thank you for whatever we need for the islands, if they even allow us, and they're in May in 2022. Let me call it to a close so we can get on there. People are probably waiting for the QuadNet array. 7 threes, guys. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.